Yo, it's me, CSCOTT, baby, and I'm back with my review of the came out in 2016 too? '16 film, X-Men Apocalypse, starring James McAvoy, Jennifer Lawrence, Oscar Isaac, and is directed by Bryan Singer. Alright, so this is what I've been waiting for since the X-Men films started. Apocalypse. And when we got that post-credit scene at the end of Days of Future Past with En-Sabah Nur being worshipped by people in Egypt, I almost my pants, because this was it. And then the movie came out and the one, how do I say this? This is fucking Apocalypse. And you have him die in one movie. This is supposed to be at the end, but I cannot hold it in. Now, I don't mind how he is killed with all the X-Men and Magneto ganging up on him to finish him off. You might need that. But Apocalypse, the first mutant, the all-powerful mutant who creates other mutants, something even Magneto has not been able to do. And by the way, they're not going to incorporate that into this either. There's a lot of things that don't make sense when you think of the canon previously established before this and eventually after this. But what if Magneto got his idea of creating his own mutants from Apocalypse? Now, he doesn't create them per se. It's supposed to be a brainwashing, where he uses his influence to make them evil versions of who they are. But in this version of Apocalypse, just powers them up. And there's one thing that actually really got me pissed off when I was watching it earlier. Storm's hair. When Apocalypse first comes across her, she has black hair. And we're led to believe that Apocalypse giving her extra powers is what gives her her white hair. Except bullshit, because this is a new timeline. Apocalypse did not exist in the original timeline. It's only because Logan went back and changed the timeline that Apocalypse was released. So he did not exist in the original timeline. So how did she have white hair in the original timeline then, Mr. Singer? Duh! I believe I mentioned this in my first class review, but the fact that they're trying to... So, I don't understand what they're doing with Magneto in these films. First film, I think you're going to say he was on a vengeance mission. He was on a revenge mission to get revenge against the guy who killed his parents. Yes. Second film, he was locked up in the Pentagon for what? Trying to save President Kennedy? And that's what he said. They said it was because he tried to assassinate. But he's trying to save Kennedy, who was apparently a mutant. Okay, but then if he was trapped in the Pentagon, how would it end up leading? Because him being trapped in the Pentagon, he was in there before the timeline changed. So how would he go from the Pentagon to going after Wolverine and Rogue in the first film? Now, when these films started, they were supposed to be prequels to the original films. But along the way, Bryan Singer said, I can use these films to correct the mistake made in the third film. And then it fucked up the timeline. So we got Days of Future Past, which for all intents and purposes should have taken place in the present timeline. Like, instead of the post-credit scene in the Wolverine, it should have had Wolverine coming to the airport and being interrupted by Bishop, who should have been the one to time travel to begin with. And then everything from this point should have taken place in that timeline. Going back in time to interact with the younger versions, it messed up the timeline. And now, nothing makes sense. And considering what we were supposed to be building to is the end of Days of Future Past. And I'm going to get into it with Dark Phoenix. Oh, bro, I'm going to get into it. This is just confusing. Magneto has a family now. He's going under the name of Henrik. And apparently nobody knows that he's actually Magneto. Except for the fact that he was on TV doing all the stuff at the end of Days of Future Past. So they should be able to recognize his face. But they don't. They think he's Henrik. He's told his wife who he is. She doesn't seem to care. And then we have the most unnecessary part of this film. The police show up because they have bow and arrows, and they shoot one arrow that goes through the wife and the daughter, which leads Magneto to freaking out. Now, it would be alright if this ended up being the turning point in which he became the villain again. But then we had the climax that completely changes that around. And they don't even do it right. Okay, this is the point where he lost his family. He thinks he has no one, right? There is a moment where Quicksilver can change that. Because we at home know that Quicksilver is his son. And he even has a chance to say this. He goes, he doesn't say it. And as far as I know, he never says it. As far as we know, he never says it. Which, Quicksilver's whole storyline is useless then. You know, because this whole thing about how he joined Apocalypse, and we'll get to that, was because his family was murdered. Accidentally, but murdered. Showing that he still has family out there, that he still has a son, would change that substantially. That would make him turn. But no, they don't go that way. Why? Why? And so, okay. Let's talk about the use of some characters in this. Now, when they announced the cast, Jubilee was among the cast. I'm like, okay, Jubilee's finally going to get some kind of story. Nope, she's a background character again. She shows up in 2 scenes, and then after the school is destroyed, now we'll get to that, she's never seen again. And it's just the main 4, that being Jean, Beast, or maybe Jean, Jean, Kurt, and Scott, the 3 that have to save the day, apparently. We have a cameo from Hugh Jackman, but they didn't de-age him. I understand. Oh, he's ageless. Wolverine is ageless. Hugh Jackman is not. So seeing a almost 50-year-old Hugh Jackman in the 1980s, and then you're supposed to see that the next time they see him, he's supposed to be a near 40 Hugh Jackman. in the year 2000. Is he aged backwards? Is he Benjamin Button? Is he Brad Pitt? What's going on here? You could have... I understand his appearance in his future past. Nothing was really changed. Other than they came from bone claws again. But they could have done a little bit of work. All they did was give him more hair. That's not de-aging him. But anyway, let's talk about Apocalypse and how they ruined his character. This is the villain I've been waiting for. Apocalypse, the first mutant, the undefeatable Apocalypse. He's killed off in one movie. And him recruiting the Four Horsemen, which he does, of course. But his recruiting is supposed to be a brainwashing, where he takes his Four Horsemen and he brainwashes them so that they obey only him. That's not what it is. All he does is he takes and he amplifies their power as a bribe for them to work for him. Because, as I mentioned, the only reason Magneto's working for him is because his family is dead, so he wants to kill the entire human race. And that would work because that's Magneto's character, but then they renege on that when he just turns on Apocalypse anyway because of Charles. Because Charles shows him memories of the first film. And, to the credit, it does feel like they were trying to bring it full circle with that, showing the memories from the first film, with Xavier telling him there's good inside of him, stuff like that. That does look like they were trying to go full circle with it. And if they had ended here, I think it would have been okay, because where does it end? We have the team of X-Men, we have the school rebuilt, although Mystique's character has sort of been ruined. Because now, after Days of Future Past, she's seen as a hero, which is not what Mystique's supposed to be. You could have ended it with, him rebuilding the school, and then have Eric say, "I rebuilt your school, Charles. That does not mean we are friends. I have my own path, and you have yours." And then have Xavier look at Mystique and say, "What about you?" And she can demorph into her blue form and say, "I need to walk my own path as well." Maybe Eric's pet. She chooses to go with Eric. And that can set up, you can just not make any more. And that connects to the first one. Except for Nightcrawler, but again, it's a new timeline. So some things can change. Like, let's speak about the Flash. Traveling back in time, right? I don't know, that's DC, whatever. But you go back in time, you change something. Some things are going to be different, but some things can also be the same. So imagine if, it ends here, and then we have that scene in the first X-Men, and instead of just Storm and Cyclops, we also have Nightcrawler showing up to teleport them away. Huh? It's interesting. Or they could have retconned and had Xavier erase their memories of him. I don't know, but the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Okay, so we have Storm. Alright, fine, she could be one. Psylocke, never heard of her, she's fine. Magneto, okay, sure, makes sense. Angel. Now, it does make sense. It would make more sense if they did this in the current timeline, like I mentioned earlier, but then but because Angel is one of the Apocalypse, one of the Horsemen in the comics and in the cartoon as well, they had to write him in to the 80s, for which he would probably be a child. But anyway, I know I said time, changes. The age that Kurt Faulkner is in this, that Nightcrawler is in this, works with how old Alan Cumming was in 2002. Here, though, we completely retcon the character of Angel into a decade where he would probably be a little kid if he was even born at all yet. And I'm sorry, but changing history is not going to have someone be born earlier than they're supposed to. Maybe not at all, but not earlier. And they don't even handle him right. Now, originally when I watched this, I said, okay, they can still capitalize on Angel, because Angel's arc, or Angel, is that after, like in the cartoon and stuff, I remember some of the best episodes of Angel were after Apocalypse was supposedly gone. There was still some kind of control over Angel. So he was conflicted on what he was supposed to do, and he wanted to get rid of it. They could have done that. And I'm like, well, they didn't show him dead, so, that they could capitalize that. And then they only announced that Psylocke was supposed to come back in Dark Phoenix, and she didn't, because the actress wasn't available. And I'm like, well, what about Archangel? There's an unfinished story with him. And then watching this today, they do show him dead. I'm like, are you serious? You just kill him? Dude, I already mentioned this before in other superhero movies, but I hate how they don't and other than like Magneto and Loki, villains in comic book movies are just one and done. Apocalypse could have been an arc villain. Have him in here, have them seemingly defeat him, but don't show him definitely defeated. Seemingly defeated. Make the next film about the Dark Phoenix while also inserting the Archangel story, right? Or if Psylocke was supposed to come back, have Psylocke have that arc where she wants to fight it off. You don't know anything about her character, but insert the Archangel story. And at the end, you have Charles go, no. I feel it. He's alive. And it's Apocalypse again. But you have Apocalypse throughout this film. Like there's something. And then you have Phoenix and Apocalypse in the final film of this franchise fighting each other. But then you set up a post-credit scene or something that sets up the first X-Men film. I know some things would be different, but still. That's not what they did. And Dark Phoenix really fucked up the franchise, really. Here, while I do like the movie, I acknowledge it's bad stuff. Jean, having her unleash her power, showing the Phoenix, was a great setup for something they didn't use in the next film. But anyway, it was a great setup, and then they didn't use it in the next film. I just said that, but it was a great setup. They didn't use it in it. Okay. Moving on. It was great. And then she leads the rest of the X-Men to kill Apocalypse. The building, destroying the school. That school doesn't get to. First, the end of First Class, it's gonna be a school. Then in Days of Future Past, it's not. Then it becomes a school at the end. Then it gets destroyed. It gets put back together. Then if we go further down the line, at this point, not talking about Dark Phoenix, but we go to the first X-Men, it's fine. And then you get X2, it's destroyed again. Well, it's attacked, it's not destroyed, but still, it's just. I do like how they try to bring it full circle with Professor X, Professor Xavier, and Magneto. This is supposed to be the last one, focusing on their characters, and it is. But I feel like there's some other characters that have gotten, in this franchise, that have gotten shut to the wayside. Characters from First Class, like Azazel, the Hurricane Dude, Emma Frost, Angel, and Banshee, were all thrown to the wayside in Days of Future Past because either their actors couldn't come back or they just didn't want to bring those characters back for some odd fucking reason. And then here, Havoc comes back, and his sole purpose in this film is to bring his brother there. And then what happens? Explosion, and even though Quicksilver is obviously fast enough to save him, it's down to one mistake. Oh, I thought I got everyone. But he was closest to the blast. He's still fast enough to save him. It's really stupid how they kill him off. Moira, boy, was she not needed in this film. Yes, I understand, trying to bring it full circle, back to First Class. Yeah, fine, sure, she's part of it. Why didn't he give her memories back right away? He doesn't give it back to her until after everything is done. Then she gets her memories back. Why didn't he? He goes in there and he says, "Oh, I had level 5 clearance or whatever." Why didn't he just? The line where he says, "I'm on a beach in Cuba," that's all right, but he should have given her powers back right away. Her inclusion in this, it doesn't her inclusion in this started a whole bunch of rumors, especially when they showed the picture of her son Kevin. They're like, "Oh, Proteus or whatever his name is. Oh, they're gonna do that. They're gonna do that," and I'm like, "Well, wait. But she was supposed to be with Banshee. I know that Proteus, Kevin McTaggart, is not Banshee's son, but they're supposed to have a romance. And they don't, because they fuck up the romances in this movie all the time, except for Jean and Wolverine. But yeah. And I've already mentioned the sequence with Wolverine. It's nice to include him, but they didn't DH him, so this looks like the current Wolverine in the 80s, which doesn't make any sense. And they make the line, "Oh, God, we won't ever see that guy again." Ha ha ha. Oh, guys, this movie it's okay, but I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. I think that there was some potential with this, and one of the biggest mistakes that they did was not introducing the younger versions of the characters in Days of Future Past. Especially when you have the older version of Wolverine interacting with them, and then in this film they run into a different version of Wolverine. They would be confused. Think of the way they could have worked with that. And then, yeah, you want to have that kind of characters like Nightcrawler or Jubilee, but you never want to write Jubilee the right way. And you turn Rogue into Jubilee in the original film. And then Nightcrawler is there. And then he gets knocked the fuck out and pops up totally. Because he's not needed at one point. It's just, no. And Magneto could have been handled better. I don't like that they're trying to turn them. Yes, they're supposed to be friends, but if this is supposed to be a closing chapter, they should have been complete enemies by the end of this. To lead into, because there's only supposed to be a trilogy, right? X-Men First Class, Days of Future Past, and this. That's it. There wasn't supposed to be any continuation of this. So, knowing that, they should have introduced the younger versions of our main characters in Days of Future Past. Continued here and then ended with Mystique and Magneto both being evil and walking off together. That would make sense. The fact they introduced Toad in Days of Future Past and they didn't bring him up here. I'm just saying, they could have been done better. So it's a 6. What are your thoughts on X-Men Apocalypse? Let me know in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. And I swear, it'll be better.